About our presence across Asia Pacific and some of the things we're doing in the area, and then I'll talk a little bit about the BPO landscape in the Philippines. Footprint in Asia, so you mentioned I'm spending a little bit of time in China these days. I've got some exciting things going on there. It's a very difficult market to enter. For those of you that are familiar with the BPO space anyway inside of China, it's a different animal entirely. We don't have much competition among many of the major players in China because it's difficult not to crack. One of the reasons it's been difficult, and it's been difficult for us for quite a while, is our initial interest in the Chinese market was wrapped around all of the growth potential that we know that comes just purely from the population base itself, and the exploding middle class. The opportunities with a lot of Chinese companies weren't as prevalent as we had hoped, and one of the reasons is because of the sheer scale. Look at companies like China Telecom or Bank of Communications or China Unicom. These companies will create a captive environment. They'll go out and build their own BPO space because for them it's not a cost burden, it's the core competence. What's changed for us really in China over the last 18 months and now is really kind of positioning ourselves for some significant things to happen in China over the next couple of years is coming from our global portfolio. The benefit of having a presence in 49 countries is we have a very large and very diverse customer base. Many of those customers, paying attention to the news in China, how they put two and two together and understand who some of those brands are having a lot of success inside of the China market now. And their products and their services are exploding in many cases. So their need and their appetite is significant. However, they're not looking for that small cost play opportunity with a Chinese telecom company. They're an existing customer of Teleperformance. They want continuity, they want consistency, they want a global management team. They don't want to go work in China and get a different experience that they get elsewhere, which is one of the reasons it's critical for us to have that continuity with our systems and with our processes as well, so that when they go into a new market like that, the experience, the feeling, the focus, the understanding of their business is going to be the same that it would be in any other country we operate in. In China today, relatively small if you look at it in comparison to what we do in the Philippines, and I'm not sure it'll ever reach Philippines kind of scale. Later down the road, as it emerges inside of the non-voice space, I think we'll have other discussions. But for now, from a voice perspective, our focus being located in Beijing is on the, of course, Mandarin-speaking market. We do Cantonese support from there as well. We see a lot of high growth right now with Japanese, which we do from Beijing. Dalian, I think many are familiar with, be another location that you can service Japanese, but we're having a lot of success in Beijing. And Korean language work as well. So it's kind of emerging for us as really the North Asian language hub, nearshore hub, if you will. Indonesia, we've got over 1,000 employees in Indonesia. Indonesia has a very specified value offering, and that's to the Indonesia market. We do nothing but Bahasa Indonesia work out of Indonesia. We cater to companies there, and that country is also seeing a lot of boom inside of the middle class ranks as well. It's a country that's approaching 300 million people. So we see very positive things to come from Indonesia over the next several years. Singapore, very small operation for us, more strategic placement than anything to ensure that we stay well connected with a lot of the companies who regionally anyway have a presence in Singapore. And Vietnam, similar to Indonesia in many ways. Again, a healthy economy, a growing middle class. We spent about 500 employees there today between Ho Chi Minh and Hanoi. But again, the value offering, very specifics, looking for Vietnamese support. We do some Thai support out of Vietnam as well. That brings us a little closer to home. In the Philippines, we were established in 1996. We're actually one of the pioneer players on this market. In fact, I think we were the first contact center company to file its SEC code. And until 2003, the concentration, much like the other markets I just mentioned, had been sheerly on the domestic marketplace, focusing on the Philippines market. However, when the opportunities started to present themselves for a lot of the U.S. customers having an appetite for an offshore solution, the Philippines began to emerge. So in 2003 is when we began those efforts. That's when I came over, and my task was to bring our largest global customer, who we were supporting on big scale out of the U.S., and kickstart that operation here in the Philippines, and I guess the rest is history. We saw scale right out of the gate. Their immediate demand was get me from 0 to 1,000 FTE and do it in less than 6 months.
No problem. Today, those kind of numbers scare you a little bit to do something quite so fast, but in that day and age, we certainly had that opportunity, and we rode the wave, as with many others at that point in time, that kind of set the foundation for what we have today. We've got about 11,000 seats now in the Philippines, approaching about 16,000 total employees. Languages are available in the Philippines as well. So while we support predominantly English, we're doing pockets of Japanese, Mandarin, Cantonese, Korean, French, Spanish, German. You really can find it all. Now those offerings are very strategic and specific to customers that have a handful of needs here and there. It's of course nothing that we would scale, and I think we all realize at the end of the day the real scale opportunity is inside of the English space. Our locations, 9 in the country. We've got 2 provincial sites in Bacolod City and Cebu. I'm not sure we call Cebu really provincial much anymore. And then 7 in the greater Metro Manila area. I'll talk to you momentarily about some of our site selection strategy. There's of course been groups like BPAP who have conducted their own Next Wave Cities report. We find those things very interesting. We've rolled up our sleeves a little bit and done some homework and found what we feel to be our Next Wave Cities report, and some things that we look at very specific relative to key success factors for a location, but at the same time also knowing what we know about some of the locations that are in the Next Wave Cities report. So industry mix specifically here in the Philippines, I think for a lot of the larger players, that top line there with telecommunications representing a very large portion of the pie of our business is not all that uncommon. The telecommunications industry, of course, historically has been the most aggressive in terms of outsourcing. It was certainly one of the most aggressive very early on in terms of pursuing offshoring opportunities both in India and the Philippines. And even today still represents a very healthy portion of our business in the Philippines, but we've really continued to diversify over the last several years. We see travel and tourism emerging, whether that be e-commerce type environments or whether that be in airline reservations. Hardware and tech support, this one's it's interesting because for a number of years, tech was kind of deemed to be best fit for India. Your customer service type work being a best fit for Philippines. I think we've all seen there's been a little bit of a shift there as well, and as the customers gravitate toward a need for a universal type agent, or have the understanding that even inside of a tech call, everything boils down to the customer experience at the end of the day. And for those of us that are very intimate with this market, I think we would all agree that the Philippines workforce has demonstrated a superior ability to build a rapport and identify with the customer. Software, financial services. Financial services, this is a tricky one. This is one where we really see, and I think we look over to the fort and we see some big logos, and we go to Cebu, we see big logos, and a lot of the banks are establishing their own presence in the Philippines. So while we still see growth on the horizon inside of this vertical, we recognize this is one that is probably the most bullish right now on pursuing captive operations, because the model is obviously a little bit different with a bank than it is with other companies who may or may not consider establishing a captive operation and creating that as a core competency. Market mix, this for us is very healthy, for a number of reasons. While the U.S. still makes up close to 70% of the market that we support from the Philippines, you can see Australia has emerged as a pretty healthy number 2. So 25% of all of the business in the Philippines that we support is servicing the Aussie market. And the reason that's important